Alright, next week's update. So things are getting a little carried away. I hate when this happens, but there's really nothing I can do about it. Before I did all this, I did my classic string and jack stand alignment. A lot of people ask, is this accurate? What are you doing? It's never going to drive straight, etc. But let me grab this tape measure here and then I'll explain everything. So what I do, I've been doing this for years. Essentially, you put two jack stands and you put string at the hub, center of the hub level, and then you measure out, let's call it 3 inches here, and then same on the front. Well, then you measure the front lip of the rim to the string and then the rear lip to the string on all 4 corners, and then you will end up with measurements such as this. So you can see toe in, the rear of the front left tire is out more, so there's about 16 millimeters of toe in on the front left, and then there was 22 on the front right, and then 22 on the rear right, and then the rear left was an issue. We're actually toe out about 7 millimeters. So this kind of leads into the next portion of the video. This rear left has always been an issue since I did the swap in 2005, I think. So we're going on almost 20 years on the second swap. Obviously this is LILEVO 2. It is not LILEVO 1, which was the maroon Mirage. So let me get into kind of how this snowballed out of control and what I am doing. Because the last video was just on the downpipe, which I have tacked up and it's just ready to be kind of welded together. No change there. I did tap out the block bolt holes, so those are nice and threaded, and then that's kind of where our bracket's going to sit. So I was thinking, I cut out a bunch of cardboard, and I was like, well, I might as well do a heat shield because this undercoating kind of gets tacky on the driver's side just because of how close the exhaust sits to it. So I cut out templates on the cardboard and then I kind of transferred those templates to aluminum. So you can get this aluminum 3x3 for about 30 bucks at Home Depot or hardware store or whatever. And I'm using, let me just count here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 factory mounting spots. So this thing is rock solid. It's not going anywhere. And then what I'm also going to do, I'm going to rivet probably 3 rivets here. 1, 2, 3 kind of on this driver's side frame rail just to hold that part in place. But I figured this is, I mean, cheap enough and it'll keep the heat down under here. And then I was like, well, I might as well make another piece because the exhaust then comes back here. So this piece was a lot easier and quicker to make. Basically, it's going to be mounted on the brake line here, and then the diff mount here, or the carrier bearing, and then this bolt stud I had put in, I don't even know for what, many years ago, but it just kind of, probably for the carrier bearing mount. So this was just there, so I used that again. So that pretty much takes care of everything forward. So the fuel lines here, I've got a 10 AN black line feed, and then this old, I think this is an 8 AN, which is now a return. This was my old feed that I just turned into a return line. And then we have the battery relocation wire here, thick wire. So this, I'm going to clean up and secure this better. Same with these. I've got a bunch more of these stainless clamps, which are really nice. They're padded clamps. So I'm going to run this back and just kind of secure this. And that leads into the first problem, which is how these fuel lines kind of evolved and turned into a twisty mess here. So the fuel pump, this is a MagnaFuel 750. And first thing, this was mounted to the subframe, but this is now going to get mounted essentially in the center here under the seat. So I'm going to move the pump here, and then that will lead this hose to basically go up in this corner and then come back and then screw into the outlet, which will probably be somewhere around here. I don't know if it's going to be centered or offset to the left a little bit. Either way, that'll fix this this mess. The issue was this pump was just too close to the drive shaft to be able to kind of bend and then come down where it needs to go. And I didn't want to use like 180 degree fittings or 90 degree or anything, so this is just kind of how it ended up. So with that, it means that the feed here is going to get relocated to probably above the subframe and out of the way of where it is now, which is kind of tucked in above the axle area, and then it kind of gets fed by that filter. So that's just going to come up over the top and basically get strapped in and everything. And then it'll be somewhere, it comes somewhere over here and then go into the pump on this side. So that's one part of this. Second part of this, I was like, oh, well, I got to take everything out to, well, you'll see the subframe's lower too, but then I saw this, and there's probably ½ inch to an inch of play in my pinion before it engages the axles. So luckily I have another diff I'm going to throw in, and then I'm going to have this one rebuilt by John over at TRE, because he still does these rebuilds. I'm going to see about what options there are for LSD, or if the factory viscous one is still good or whatever. But I don't want to upgrade to Evo axles or anything with the aftermarket, or the I think it's a Mitsu Evo diff or some type of diff that can go in here. Either way, I want to keep the factory 4-bolt axles and then hopefully end up with a working differential with some type of limited slip. So then I was like, well, since the toe, okay, the toe issue. So way back when, 20 years ago when I did this, I did do all polyurethane bushings in the subframe, so that's good. However, this toe eliminator was done by my cheapo Century MIG welder, and again, in my 2024 standards, this is not going to cut it. So what I've done is I ordered Volk Racing. They make a toe elimination kit, which is basically an insert, a steel or aluminum, I think, yeah, it's steel, a steel insert that goes inside of this, and then it's real nice. It has Heim joints, and then you can unscrew the end of it to adjust toe in or out, and then also use the factory eccentric bolt to do toe. So this is going to be cut off, essentially cleaned up, ground down. He also has these cool steel washers or spacers that you remove this bolt and nut, and then you can weld his steel plugs essentially here. So that's going to fix this issue and then fix this toe issue. The reason the toe is off is because the subframe was mounted not entirely straight, so there wasn't enough adjustment on the driver's rear side to get toe within spec. So stand by and I will show you what I unfortunately did. Just move this out of the way. So being a young kid, not a lot of patience, what did I do? Well, I simply ground out the mounting point here for the rear trailing arm. Why did I do that? Well, so I can get more toe adjustment, and then I just use a regular bolt with the washer instead of the eccentric bolt. So now what I'm going to have to do is fix all of this, grind this all out, re-weld it, kind of rebuild up this structure in here back to factory, so the factory eccentric bolt and washer will work now. Because I have one of those on order from the local Mitsubishi dealer, so that'll be here Monday. And the other side is fine. There's nothing really wrong with this side aside from this end link here, which again is just getting cut off and then redone entirely. You'll see I've got this kind of marked where it was when I did the alignment earlier. So just to give me a point of reference, kind of where we're at, and then what has to be done. Now, the biggest issue here, as you can see, my homemade studs here are on an angle. Well, when I originally did this, they were straight, but then I tried to lift the subframe in place, and it didn't line up. So I got mad, I got frustrated, I had to grind these out again, and I had to weld them in an angle just so the subframe would kind of slip into them and mount up there. Well, the problem with that is, if you can see, the subframe mount here kind of got ripped out, the bushing, and then what also happened was, I don't know if you can see how terrible those stock bushings are, but they're all chewed up. Let me grab a different light for that. But these things got just absolutely destroyed. I mean, look at that. It doesn't move. You can stick a screwdriver in there and or a pry bar, and it doesn't move, but it just looks real bad. And that bushing, the center bushing, just kind of walked its way out of there because these studs were on an angle and everything was tweaked. So what I'm doing now, I actually have, man, what is it? RTM, I think it is. Don't quote me. I think it's RTM Racing. Let me look that up real quick while you look at this. RTM Racing. Yes, so RTM Racing up in Canada, they actually have real nice polyurethane or whatever material this is, bushings for the subframe. And I guess they don't make these anymore, so I'm lucky to have them. And they're actually made so they work with the factory support brace here. Look how perfectly that sits in there. So this will eventually be something like that. And I don't even know if I'm going to use this entire thing, mounting it to here or cutting this up, because that leads me to my next part of this endeavor. Is I'm going to mount a chassis brace. Essentially, it's going to bolt here, it's going to nut onto here, and then there's going to be a bar coming from the rear subframe all the way to this control arm mounting point. And then we are going to attach another bar from the front control arm mounting point here over to the passenger side control arm mounting point here, and then both of those are going to somehow get triangulated or attached to this main chassis bar on the rear front control arm all the way back to the subframe. So that should lead to considerable stiffening and tie everything together real nice. Also, as you can see, I'm honestly embarrassed to even show this on camera, but it is what it is. We're just going to face our demons here. So this mounting point, don't get me wrong, it's in here rock solid. It's part of the car. It's part of the frame. It's been like this for 20 years. But it's just 2-inch tube steel or square box steel welded to the chassis. Also, in my frustration with this bushing, I didn't really have a solution for this sticking out. I didn't want to cut it. So, of course, what did I do? Oh, I just stuck a little piece of steel on top, and that was my spacer. So this will get bolted to the stud, and this will just kind of sit up there like that. Oh, how fun. That's your little spacer. So this is all getting redone. This is all going to be done properly. Because there's no way I can put this back together at this point. So I think what I'm going to do is either, again, the 2-inch tube steel or something, and then just do like a triangle type mount from this point up and over to here, and then fill this all in, and it'll all be nice. And I'm tracking down some factory pins, mounting pins here. So what those are going to do, they're going to drop in to the subframe, and then the mounting pin has 3 bolt holes, so 3 mounting points on the pin itself, which are going to bolt into the frame up here. I'm going to have kind of nut receptors in whatever structure I make, so I can tighten those bolts in, and then it'll hold the pin to the frame, and then it'll all be nice, and I won't have to worry about angles or any kind of prying to get stuff on. So that's that. I also still have some of the original material from the Panhard bar or whatever, the factory, not independent rear suspension, but the shared suspension. I don't even know what it's called. So I've got a spot weld drill coming, and I'm going to drill all that out, get rid of all this old material that still exists. Probably remount these e-brake cables, which are 1G DSM cables, and they work fine here, and they're cheap and plentiful. So I'll probably redo that, and then these brake lines, I'll secure these somehow, just kind of clean them up a little bit better. And after all that's done, then I can bolt this thing back together. But I don't want to cut anything up yet, because I need to get an ETA on when all these parts are going to arrive, so this thing's not stuck on the lift. And then the last part of this, I don't know if I'm going to do it at the same time as this or after this is all kind of done, said and done, but the mustache brace bar, or the rear diff mounting up there, right now I just have it just a stud and a nut, and I know there's like washers and spacers and the same thing kind of going on with that I need to take care of, because that's missing some pieces. I mean, it's mounted solid, but it's just not mounted as the factory intended it. And you can even see right now, this is kind of, I'm missing the entire thing here. Like, there's supposed to be a spacer that kind of holds this whole thing together. Well, like I said, it's fine now. It's not going anywhere. But I also, I did order from RTM as well. They have mustache brace bushings, same as the subframe. So I'm going to replace those once I get those parts. So that is this in a nutshell. Yeah, it's going to be a lot more enjoyable. Hopefully it'll drive a lot nicer, especially with this diff. I mean, man, that's a lot. The only other thing I wanted to mention was, so I've read that people don't really like the Heim mounting solution or the toe adjustment, because everyone says, well, you got to remove the whole arm just to adjust toe. Well, you just have to remove this lower arm, and then this will pop out of here, and then you can do your adjustments. So it's not like you have to unbolt the entire suspension and then the ball joints to remove the trailing arm to adjust the Heim. Like, it's not that big a deal. It's just this rear lower bar. You unbolt and then everything kind of swings out of there, and then you can do your toe adjustments and then just spin this thing or whatever and then stick it back in. So I'm pretty happy. I was going to go with OEM ones again and then kind of weld it up, but at this point, like, there's no point. Just do it right with more adjustment, because if we get this up in here and we don't have our enough play or enough adjustment with the factory adjuster, we've always got this, and then we can always get our toe back to 0 or whatever spec we want it at. But yeah, I tried to fix this obviously once in the past, it looks like, just to fix the integrity of this adjuster, and that's just not done well. So I'm gonna have to, this side is actually not too bad because this is the, oh no, it is bad. I gotta grind all this out of here so that eccentric washer or adjuster can fit in here and rotate. Same with this front one here. Let's actually take a look at that one. Yeah, you can kind of see, like, at least this one, all I got to do is kind of rebuild that center material. The integrity of this outer ring is not really compromised, so I know the adjuster will fit in there and then be able to rotate, but that inside one is just a little bit of a pain. And then these, I think the easiest way to get these out, I've seen a lot of people just use propane and burn them out of here. That's probably what I'll do. And then you retain, there's a ring, factory ring in here that you just keep in there, and then you push the new one in, and it kind of sits in there beautifully like this. And then it's got like a ring on top, that's your spacer on top. So we're going to fix it up good, don't worry. And you can see, I don't know if I had any extra wear on the inside. I think I did. On this one, there's more wear on the inner or outer part because of that toe. And then you can also the other thing is you can kind of feel it a little bit. It kind of got, not squirrely, but it wasn't perfectly tracking straight with this one kind of toed out. So we'll get her done. We'll get her all fixed up. We'll get rid of this bolt. I mean, literally, you just tighten it down as hard as you could and kind of hope for the best. But eventually it did come loose a couple times and the toe was all messed up. So 2024, the year of fixing everything I did 20 years ago that I regret. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are. If I missed anything, if you have any better ideas on any of this. Otherwise, yeah, I think my plan's pretty solid. So I'll do another video at some point in the next few weeks, and see ya.